What's going on, guys? As you can see by the thumbnail, today's video is going to be a good one, so stay tuned. Before I dive into today's video, I want to thank today's sponsor. Oh wait, I don't have one yet. So if you guys wouldn't mind going in before you finish this video, give me a like, comment, subscribe. I greatly appreciate it. If you guys do so, I'll be able to continue pumping out more content for you guys. I do have some big plans for this car in the future, but obviously I need to have more attention to this YouTube channel before I can do so. And now, back to today's video. I've been wanting to put these fenders on this car for quite a while now. It's not fully installed yet. You can see it's just kind of bolted on and back and forth on what kind of hardware I want to use. I still have to go in and cut this wheel arch out on the metal part of the fender, so this fits just fine. I did cut some of this out inside here just so I could get the wheel to sit where it needed to. And then I did cut a little bit here as well. But right out of the box, this thing fits pretty well. I was able to just kind of put it on there, see where it fits without really any trimming. I was pretty happy with how it turned out, and so far with how it looks. Pretty aggressive. I did say that I had to use a 1.5 inch spacer. This is a spacer that you put on. It's got its own set of lug nuts and wheel studs. Torque it on, and then you put the wheel on, then you torque the wheel onto the spacer. So I do believe these spacers are a lot more safe than just putting a spacer on there that you're utilizing the existing studs, and then you run risk of not having enough threads on the stud to hold the wheel on. So those are a little more dangerous than these ones. I feel these ones are fairly safe. A couple things to keep in mind before you put these on here. The trim is going to have to come off on that side up there. This one comes off as well, and it kind of wraps around here. You can see it doesn't quite fit on there fully, so I've got to go ahead and sand that out. But be careful when taking the trim off. These are bolted in, so there's a couple 8mm bolts on the inside of the fender that you've got to take off. Don't just pry on this because you'll end up breaking it. And then you'll have to pull out the marker light as well, which also has two studs in it as well. I've already drilled those out, but I haven't put the marker back in. I've got to drill the center hole out for the light bulb. So just be careful when you're pulling these off. Don't grab them and try to yank them out because you think they're clipped in. They're actually bolted in. So make sure you remove those nuts on the inside, and then this whole trim piece will come off. I don't know exactly how many there are. I know there's a few of them throughout here. And just take those off, then this whole trim piece will just kind of pop off and out of the way, and then you're good to go. Also, you'll need to remove the spoiler, this section of the spoiler only. Depending on how you did it, there's just like in the other video that I did, there's like one stud and then like a push-in piece. So just pull this guy off. You can see obviously the fender goes underneath the spoiler section here. So pull that out to get this lined up, or you'll have some issues with that. It still fits on there just fine with it. It kind of pushes up a little bit, but not enough to cause any problems. Because I don't have any experience with body work, the way I'm going to fasten these fenders on are with bolts. So these are Allen bolts here, one there, and one on the bottom there. I know some people will just use straight rivets. I'm worried about them not holding the fender all the way on or coming loose and then having issues. These are actually threaded in with riv nuts into the fender itself, and they're pretty strong. I mean, it's all fully bolted in now, and it doesn't even move. So I'm going to change them out though. I don't like how big these are. They're fairly good size with the washer and then the bolt. So I'm probably going to go with something like this. It's just a smaller Allen bolt that's got a kind of a flared surface on it. I don't want to use just a small Allen cap screw because I don't want it to be a straight pressure right in this section of the fender to potentially crack the fiberglass. So I wanted something a little bit bigger. Like I said, I didn't want to use a rivet. I wanted to use something more like a bolt, so I could take this fender off if I needed to. I am still going to be wrapping the car, so being able to take the fender on and off easily to do the wrap on it is kind of what I'm after. And I also like the aggressive look of how the bolts kind of tie it all together. So that's how I'm going to do it. And I know some of you guys are like, oh, I would just, mold it, use body filler and mold it onto the car. Again, I don't know how to do any of that, so I'm not going to. I'm not even going to try to risk it because I'm sure I'll probably screw something up. So I'll show you how I installed the rib nuts in here. I'm going to hurry and pop this fender off and show you what it looks like underneath. So before I cut this piece of it out on the quarter panel here, I just was going to explain how I did these. So these are riv nuts. It's just like a threaded sleeve that goes into the sheet metal, the thinner metal for the quarter panel. It uses a tool that looks like this, just kind of like a crimp type tool. It has a die on the top here. You'll set the tension using this piece here on the top. You'll use a different die for the different size of riv nut here. This one's set for a metric 6 riv nut, so it just threads on like this onto the tool here. Open the tool up, set it so it's all the way down. You'll press this into the sheet metal, pull the handles together, and that'll cause the shank of this to kind of squish down and it'll flare it out. So it might be hard to see, but there's kind of a knurled end on this. When that compresses and it flares it out, that knurled end is what's going to catch into the metal and not spin. When I go to do this, or when I cut this out and put this all together, I'm going to get my welder and I'm going to just put a little tack on the edges on the sheet metal and on the riv nut, just so the riv nut doesn't spin and loosen up, and that should probably do it. So if you guys are wanting to do it this way, I highly recommend getting one of these tools. They're like 60 bucks on Amazon. Comes with a bunch of the riv nuts, a case, and the tool, and then all the dies for it. So you can get different types. You can get like stainless steel ones. You can get all sorts of different types of riv nuts. But if you're not careful and you put too much tension on this by using this guy here, if you crimp it down too tight, it can rip the threads right out of it, and then you got to drill it out and put a new one in. So, but yeah, great tool to have. It's really convenient, and you can put all sorts of threaded inserts and all sorts of type of sheet metal and stuff, especially like up in the engine bay if you're wanting to mount different things onto the fenders. This is the way to go. Right, that was a little nerve-wracking. I cut out, I don't know, maybe 2 inches worth of metal. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these. I just made the cuts in like this. If you guys haven't seen how people do these, it's all over the place. I'm not going to talk about it. But I made these relief cuts. I'm going to just take each thing. I'm going to bend them up. I'm going to sand the paint off here. And then I'm going to weld these probably right up against this edge. I don't want to overlap it and weld on the top of this. I want to weld it right up to this to keep it nice and clean. And then I'm going to grind over it again with a flapper disc and make it just nice and smooth. So when I go to put the wrap on it, it just goes right up over the welds, and I don't have any weird issues with it poking out, but it should be fairly easy to do. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that, and then grab the welder, sand all this off, weld it on, and I think we're almost there.
The Outer Banks. Paradise on Earth. Outer Banks. Paradise on Earth.
Alright, so as you can see, a lot has happened from that last video. Unfortunately, my battery died, but I wanted to just hurry and get this knocked out and done with, so I wasn't dinking with it all night. After I got everything pulled up and stitch welded, if you guys want to watch how to do that, there's plenty of videos out there. I didn't want to just have an hour of me going in and stitch welding everything, okay? You just pull up the sides, or up underneath here where it's cut. You just pull those up, just run a bead all the way around like this. Learn from my mistakes. Do not use a flux core wire welder. It kept blowing through the sheet metal and looked like crap. First of all, I was using a cheap welder, so if you're going to do this, make sure you have at least a decent welder that's going to work with this. I used a Harbor Freight 120 with the flux core, so I don't have any way to run gas on that particular welder, so I just wanted to get it done. Unfortunately, it was causing me more headache than it was worth. Luckily, you can see from here, I got it. It's pretty smooth now. Once I went in and welded everything over, I just knocked everything down with a flapper disc on a right angle grinder and was able to get it pretty smooth. So the weld's all just right behind here. You can't see it. After I finished all the weld, I just got some body filler and I just kind of feathered it out along this edge. And then I went through and sanded it, did a couple coats of the body filler just to make sure I got it somewhat smooth. I'm not too concerned with this portion because it's going to be underneath the over fender. So I don't really care what it looks like. I'm probably going to actually just leave it primered right now. I just don't want it to rust. That's why I did what I did. So all the bare metals is completely sealed off, so I don't have that problem. Also underneath here, where my hand's rubbing, is all been sprayed with undercoating. So it looks just like the rest of the car. It's all been undercoated. That way I don't have to worry about the rubber, the metal rusting. And it turned out pretty good. You can just like in a spray can. I just masked everything off, sprayed it underneath, and it turned out pretty good. Also, you can see how much I had to cut out here. It was quite a bit, about 1.5 inches. I think I said 2 inches. It's about 1.5 inches. You can see the mark on the tire actually where it rubbed. So it was a good amount that I had to cut out. A lot of guys have been kind of reaching out to me. They're like, I can't believe you cut up perfectly good fenders. This fender was by no means perfect. It actually was rusted underneath the backside of it. So inside this void, it had rust inside there. This fender, when I was in high school, I used our minivan and I actually backed into this side of the vehicle. I didn't see it sitting at the end of our driveway and backed in. I pushed this fender in about a little less than 1/4 inch. So the fitment on the wheel on this side was like ideal, but the other side it's way off because this fender was pushed in, so it made it sit a lot better on this side. So again, by no means was this fender perfect. The other side isn't perfect either. My wife took my truck and she was backing on the driveway, didn't see the Supra was sitting there, and backed the driver's side rear quarter of my truck into the rear passenger side quarter of this car. So that's damaged as well. So that made this decision a lot easier to go through and cut all this stuff out because both the fenders are not perfect. They are destroyed. So I'm going to obviously do the other side. I'm not going to do just one side, but go through and cut that out. I'll show you what the damage looks like on the other side. It's not bad. It's not significant, but it is enough that I'm okay with doing what I'm doing on this. So if you guys have a perfectly good car and you're like, I will never do this, that's totally fine. More power to you. Don't cut apart a perfectly good car if you don't want to. If you like how it looks with the over fenders and your fenders are perfect, do whatever you want to do. I mean, it's your car. You guys can do whatever you want to do. I've also liked how the over fender looks on this car. So that's why I went also this route, and I knew I wanted to do something eventually with the over fenders. And I think it looks pretty aggressive with the tire poke on it. On the front and the back, you can see the tires stick out a little bit better. It looks more like a track car. I just kind of went through and just sprayed the primer on it. Like I said, it's not perfect. I'm going to go in and sand it because I don't care. When I go to wrap the car, the wrap is going to come down partway over this, and I'm actually going to seam it. I'm going to put some glue on there so the wrap doesn't shrink. For this over fender, I had to cut out a bunch inside here. This is where the wheel sits. Okay, this is the wheel arch. I still have to cut some out. I've got to cut out up here. I've already put the fender on, and the tire's already rubbed on this little tiny portion right here. So I'm going to go in and cut this piece out. So just keep that in mind when you're putting these fenders on here. You're going to have to cut out quite a bit of the inside of the fender. It didn't lose any rigidity. It's not like floppy and everything now because I cut all that out. It's still just as stiff. And like I said before, I was kind of torn between using something like this with an aluminum washer on it versus a aluminum bolt, the anodized one. I would prefer this route because the fenders are arched. So when you put a bolt in, the bolt's going to go in straight. it's not going to sit flat on the fender because the fender arches down. Whereas this aluminum washer will be able to kind of contour to that fender, and it'll be able to allow the bolt to go in straight, but then the washer will sit to the contour of the fender, and it looks a lot better. So the washers are a little bulky. They're pretty decent size and diameter, but again, this part has a little bit of movement wherein the screw will just kind of hold it in place. They look pretty good, so I'm going to go this route and not the aluminum bolts that I have, those red anodized ones. Also, they were cheap. They kept stripping out, so I'm going to go with that. With this as well, so I did one here, one on the back, and or two on the back as well with the rib nuts. I'm probably going to add one more, so I'll probably do 3 and 3, and that should be enough to hold the fender in place. I'm also going to probably put the double-sided 3M like foam tape in there, just to make sure that the fender doesn't rattle or make any weird noises. When I drove it yesterday and the wheel was rubbing on the inside of that fender, I didn't hear any other issues. That was the only thing that I heard. It was only when I was going over a bump. So I'd go over a bump and I'd hear the rubbing of the tire, so I knew that I didn't have enough cut out, but that was it. Everything else sounded just fine. And I had plenty of clearance from the tire to the fender. I mean, that's quite a bit of distance there. I can also stiffen up the suspension if I need to. I'm not going to lower the car anymore, so I don't have to worry about clearance issues there. But other than that, everything else worked out pretty good, and I'm pretty happy with it. I'll continue to pop these videos out for you. I have my list still of videos that people have requested, so I'll get right back on that once the fender stuff is done. I want to get that other side over with, and then we can move on. If there's something that I missed on the fender stuff, let me know in the comments. Again, these are the Shine Auto over fenders. They were roughly $400 shipped. Pretty decent quality for what they are. As you can see in the video, they still take a little bit of sanding, not a lot, but a little bit of sanding to clear the wheels so you don't have any rubbing issues. But overall, I've been pretty impressed with them. They do look pretty good, and they'll look good once the wrap is over. So stay tuned for more videos. I appreciate everything that you guys have done so far with the subscribing and the comments. I greatly appreciate it. I will continue to throw some new videos out there for you guys, maybe 1 or 2 a week. I will go back to my list as well of the things that you guys want to see. I know some of you guys have reached out and said that the battery location, obviously my battery's not here anymore, it's in the trunk. That's on my list next to do. So stay tuned for that. Leave a comment down below. Give me a like. Give me that thumbs up. And take some time to go and give me a subscribe as well. So obviously you guys know how YouTube works. I say this in every video. The more subscriptions, the more likes, the more comments, the more content I can put out there for you. So I love doing this, and I hope that I can continue to do this in the near future and get out some good videos of this. Also, if you guys want to see videos on this is my Can-Am Turbo RR. It's a 1000cc turbo. Obviously, you can see it's fitted with some paddle tires. I go out to the dunes quite a bit here in Utah. So if you guys want to see videos on this, let me know. Also, a little side thing I do, might be a little nerdy, but the RC drift cars, I also have one of those that I can show in a video if you guys want to see stuff on that. That's just a little fun thing that I do on the side. I also do RC rock crawlers as well, that I've made my own custom cages and things for those. If you guys want to see that stuff, let me know. I'm just thinking of more content and things that you guys want to see. If you guys do want to see this, I'll do a build spec on this. This is a custom built roll cage that my buddies and I built. We built 5 of them, and there's some things that we've done with these as well. But again, if you guys are interested in seeing that, I'll talk about it. If you're not, then I won't worry about it. Wouldn't mind taking a second to drop below. Give me a subscribe, leave me a comment, give me that thumbs up. Greatly appreciate it. And I'll continue to throw that content out there for you guys. So, see you guys on the next one.